Then, ladies and gentlemen, we're back for another week of Game Masters Arsenal. This week, of course, by the title, you can already tell that we're going to be breaking down the Neothelid. We're finishing our series on the Illithids as we wrap up with the what I call the consequences of my players' actions, and we'll get into that. For now, this is our work in progress studio. We still haven't gotten the doors up. As soon as we get the doors up, I'll be trapped in here because D&D players, we cannot get through a door. They are our worst enemy. Of course, I'm your GM Isaiah, and welcome to Game Masters Arsenal. Before we get further into it, I do gotta say, the audio quality is a little bit different because the room is so big right now. Until we get the doors up, until we get the sound paneling up, we're still in a very work in progress studio as we've moved. Um, so just bear with us in that meantime with the audio. Um, it will get better. I swear. Every week you'll notice it'll get better as we get the doors up, as we get the sound paneling, like I said. Um, but I digress. The Neothelid. Um, the Neothelid at its base. I did it again. I've got a screen to my right here where I tried to once again I tried to raise it up with my finger because I'm used to have it being on a laptop with touchscreen. So the Neothelid, at the end of Colony, a Neothelid is born. Now, the reason we're covering this after we covered Illithids is because I don't actually consider this as a part of the line of Illithids, because you don't need to be worried about the Illithid lore. You don't need to be worried about the structure of a colony. You don't need to worry about anything like that. All you need to know is that this creature is born when a group of adventurers or another Illithid empire or something comes in and wipes out a mind flayer colony. Now, when they wipe out a mind flayer colony, if they do not destroy the brine pools and the tadpole chambers, the tadpoles will consume each other. And eventually, the last one standing will emerge from the pool as a giant worm. Purple, well, not a purple worm. It looks kind of like a worm. Not like a worm. I'm putting up an image here. It's like a mind flayer worm. It emerges as one of these, and these things are just devourers. They don't care about your politics. They don't care about the great grand design of the Illithids. They're hungry and they want to eat. And that is all that matters, which lends them to being a very interesting thing because there's a few different ways you can run this. Now, and as a storytelling, there's a few. This can be an epilogue story. This could also be if you're one of those DMs that runs sequel campaigns. This could be the consequences of the player's action. The previous characters didn't do it right, but the players go, right, we should have done that last campaign, and now we're suffering for it. Otherwise, you can really bring up the hubris of other adventurers when one of these shows up. Most of the time, these will be in the Underdark. I can see arguments for them to being above ground sometimes if they find their way out of the Underdark, or if they or if for some reason the colony is on the surface of your world, however you want to build it, which means it's a very versatile creature. The only issue is how big it is, because this is a gargantuan creature. This is a titan looming over your characters. As you can see that image, you can see one person standing next to it. These things are massive, which means they are fantastic boss fights. And when you're leading into these fantastic boss fights, there's so much that you can do for it. Um, and in regards to it. But sorry, I have a little bit of something in my throat. Some allergies are beating me down. As far as running this thing and your story behind it, either a town's being terrorized or there's this myth of a monster in the Underdark that prowls around. Yeah, those are very common. The myths of the creatures wandering around are very common. And so when you hear about it, your players can go hunt this thing down. Another great, interesting way, this is probably, I'd say, one of the more interesting ways to use the Neothelid is to churn somebody's victory sour. Your players emerge from the Elder Brain, murdered the Elder Brain, and now the town they wanted to save has been destroyed by the Neothelid the next time they visit. This thing has devoured everything, and they're now hunting it down. And as they go, they learn about it. Maybe they have to do some research in a library. They learn about the life cycle of the Illithids. They They learn about how these things are born and how they come about and how this is their fault. This can create very interesting character moments where the characters realize that it's not that they didn't do the right thing. They did the right thing. They saved everyone. They left the job unfinished without knowing it. And because of that, they are up against this thing. Now, in combat, this thing is an entirely different animal. Um, it's not going to fight like an illithid because it doesn't care about it. Illithids Illithids fight with intelligence. This thing is just hungry. Now, it has some abilities to it that can cause some problems for your players. The first one I want to go over is, of course, creature sense. Um, it is aware of the presence of any creature with intelligence 4 or greater within 1 mile of it. It knows the direction to each creature and the distance to each creature, as well as its intelligence, but can't sense anything about it. Um, what this means is that if you're within 1 mile of this thing, it knows where you are, it knows how smart you are, and it knows that you are a delicious snack. Now, since it knows you're a delicious snack, it is coming for you. But you can hide from it. This ability can be hidden by a mind blank spell, a non-detection spell, or similar magic. It lets people not be perceived by scrying spells. It works on this thing. So your players do have options to hide if they've studied this thing. Sneaking up on this thing is a literally not a little sorry, a little more difficult. Because it has blind sight. 120 feet out, it can see everything. It is blind. It's not like tremor sense. It just sees out. It doesn't care about whether they're moving. It doesn't care about whether they're touching the ground. It just has blind sight. After that, it is blind. It can't see beyond that, but it can detect it with the creature sense, which means your players with the very long range spells might be using this opportunity to duck in and out of the fight at 120 feet. Keep this thing off the guard. The issue is how fast it is. Because it has 30 feet of movement, it can keep up with a lot of characters. And because of that, it can dash as well. So you got a gargantuan creature moving 60 feet. It's closing off a lot of areas. It also knows spell casting. It knows confusion, feeble mind, telekinesis, and levitate. Very odd spells. And this thing would be a threat without its spell casting. But the fact that it has spell casting, so it can move debris around with its levitate. It can cast feeble mind and confusion and telekinesis to mess with the players and with the battlefield. Its spells are still like an illithid's. It is still trying to control the fight. It may not be as intelligent as an illithid in its planning basic strategies. Maybe it throws rocks at them because it's injured. Maybe it confuses the fireball thrower. It doesn't necessarily say he's a wizard, I have to kill him. It says it just threw a fireball at me. Confusion. Of course, it also has magic resistance for those fireball throwers. I'm looking at you, wizards. The fireball throwers. This thing just has advantage against the spells. Now, those are its abilities. Coming off of illithids, I like this as a good wrap up for them because it does things that illithids do, but you are not tied down by intelligent fighting. This thing is just hungry. It just wants food. And of course, it has tentacle attacks with plus 13 to hit, a range of 15 feet, 3d8 bludgeoning, and 2d10 psychic damage. And if it's the creature's larger or smaller, so if it's a character, 18 strength save or be swallowed. It is blinded, restrained, and has total cover against attacks and other effects. It takes 21 acid damage at the start of the Neothelid's turn. If the Neothelid takes 30 or more damage in a single turn from a creature inside it, the Neothelid succeed on a Constitution saving throw or regurgitate all swallowed creatures. And if it's dead, they're prone, but they can use 20 feet to move out of it. That's a long ability for essentially say I grab you, make a DC 18 saving throw, or I eat you. And you start taking 66. 6d6, not 66. 6d6. I did that to one of my players where I went quick. I'm like, you take 66. And roll the 66. And he goes, I'm dead. 66 damage. I'm like, no, 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 no. No. Um, 13 to hit. This thing is getting through most people's armor. This thing needs to roll a 10 to hit a 23. It's hitting. And I see why they didn't give this thing multi attack, because if this thing had multi attack, it would demolish parties. Its other ability is, of course, on a recharge, it has an acid breath. It has a cone attack. Dexterity saving throws or 10d6 acid damage. Against a group of parties, this thing's fighting alone. These abilities are for a creature fighting alone. And when you're building your encounter for this, we've gone through its abilities. You kind of understand it a little bit and how it's going to fight. Because this creature was meant to be fought in the Underdark, it is meant to be fought in caves. It's meant to be fought in confined spaces where it has the advantage. This thing is an apex predator in the Underdark. It loses a bunch of its abilities as soon as you put it in the overworld, because when you put it at the top material plane with everyone else, people can go around it. This cone attack isn't as threatening, but when you're building your encounter, it's probably going to be in the Underdark, because that's where this creature lives. Um, and that's where they wiped out the colony. Maybe the fight is in the colony. That can be an interesting thing where it slithers throughout the entire colony, and now the party has to fight it inside the colony. And then, of course, when they get hit by that acid breath, that's 10d6 damage. That's a maximum of 60 damage, a minimum of 10 damage, with an average of 35. So this thing has a long range in the amount of damage that can do. Unlike the other one, which has 2d10, which is 2d10, well, it's tentacle attack, which has a 2d10 psychic damage, which is maximum of 20, minimum of 2, probably about a 10 for the average, because it doesn't actually say that, but I'm guessing a 10. And of course, the base damage on that is 3d8 plus 8. So a maximum of 32 damage, a minimum of 12 damage on that one. So you're looking at, and probably an average of, I would say about 24 damage. That sound about right? No, probably 16 damage. I need to run the numbers. I honestly, they usually have them in the books. I'm very disappointed in Mordekainen's Monsters of the Multiverse, because in Volo's Guide to Monsters, they had those averages, because you could take the average damage. As a DM, it speeds things up. I'm disappointed that they didn't put those in this new book, because this creature was originally in Volo's Guide to Monsters, was reprinted into Mordekainen's Monsters of the Multiverse. I'm not fond of Monsters of the Multiverse. I like Volo's Guide to Monsters because it dealt so much, and I'm not going to get into that topic because it is a long topic. Um, Overall, this is a simple creature, well made. You're going to be running this thing. You're going to be running it as just a simple random encounter sometimes. The epilogue to the fight that your players are having, and there's so much that you can do there. And so much you can do with this creature. This has been a shorter episode. We're running about 13 minutes, but this is what we get when we get these simple creatures well made. They are easy to fight, they're easy to build, they're easy to run, they are nightmares on the battlefield. It has 27 strength, 7 dex, 21 con, 3 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and 12 charisma. Why a worm has 12 charisma is beyond me, but it has 12 charisma. But a 27 strength, that's so much. Good luck failing strength saves. Of course, it's not immune to anything, so you can still knock it prone. Odds are you're not going to, because it's a gargantuan creature. Overall, yeah, I like the Neothelid. I like the idea of it. I like where it's going, that this is the consequences of the player's actions. And because it is the consequence of your player's actions, there's so much you can do with it. Not necessarily from a strict monster of the week and a strict story monster, but the fact that it can create character dilemmas where it makes the characters question, are they doing the right thing? Are they completing their jobs? are they doing more harm than good? So when you can get those character moments from your players in a way just by introducing a monster that is their fault, and is due to their either ignorance or lack of foresight, I would say, or well, it'd be ignorance. It's pure ignorance. Or they just didn't listen to who they were supposed to listen to. There's any reasons that they didn't eliminate the colony when they did. I mean, what can I say about this creature? Really simple. It's got 2 attacks, 3 abilities, a few spells in its arsenal. Simple creature. It's going to be a fun fight. That's everything that I've got for you guys this week. I'm your GM Isaiah, and we'll see you next time. Oh, of course, if you're watching, we do this every week. Hit that follow, hit that subscribe, hit that like wherever you're at. Hit the bell hop with that likes. The likes really help us on YouTube and other platforms. So just tip the server on your way out.